So I thought I would just quickly go through a release for your hips and the seat bones that really seems to work for me. I'm just going to kind of describe it, but feel free to take your time when you do it. Essentially, if you've ever taken a class with Robert Price, this is something he taught us, where you kind of sit with a butterfly with your feet together, and you kind of entwine your hands around the feet, and I let my arms kind of, I don't lock the elbows, but I kind of let them pull, if that makes sense. And then I spend time in this position in my spine, just trying to get into my spine, and I also try to let the hips kind of relax. It can be kind of intense if you have stiff hips, but you can kind of pull your feet closer or farther away from you as you need. And I just kind of get into some belly breathing in this position for a while. This helps also for me, because the arms are pulled straight, it helps with the releasing of the neck and the shoulders, I find, you know. If you ever do a stretch where you kind of try and lower your shoulders deliberately, if that makes sense, like you have your hands over your head and then you try to release the shoulders down, it, for me, has a similar sensation. So it's kind of a release for the back, and just, if it helps, I find bouncing, getting into belly breathing, using some of the breathing from the last video I shared, the yawning, creating the space in the mouth can help. And then you move between one leg and the other, so you start with one side, right or left, have your one foot in on the inside of the thigh, the other foot out, but don't flex the foot. Specifically, don't flex it. You know, because sometimes if you're stretching before you work out, we flex all the muscles, but actually I find, and I believe this is the way we were taught, is to be soft. You have your hands opened, and you just kind of reach towards the one foot. But the funny thing that I've discovered for myself, so other people might discover different things for their bodies, but it's really important, like I have to pull my seat bones out, and try and make sure I'm grounded in both seat bones as I do this. So if I'm leaning over too far, it doesn't work. So I almost have to kind of slouch into my seat bones and just kind of reach. And then I just let my head hang, just kind of loose and just kind of release, but I try to make sure that there's a reaching through the hand for the foot. Foot is soft, you can't see it unfortunately. And just grounded through both seat bones. I can kind of reach a bit farther, but as long as I'm limp almost. And you can stay in this position for a while. You'll feel a stretch on the back, lower back, upper glute, hip area on this side. And then, you know, try and reposition to ground again and kind of moving between these places. I don't think any particular stretch should ever be stiff. You know, we're breathing organisms, it's moving all the time. So then you bring your leg that was extended out behind you if you can. It's going to be quite intense. Sometimes I find it nice, you create fists and you rub your glutes a bit, you rub around the side of the hips, the thighs, the lower back, the spine, up and down along the spine to create some nice friction. And then when you're ready, you can stay in this position for a while, have your hands open again, and see if you can get in your spine, ground on both seat bones if it helps, kind of pull the butt cheeks out and get into the spine and relax and just continue breathing. Try and let yourself settle long enough to have a few deep belly breaths. Then when you're ready to move on, you go straight down in front of you. And if you need to use your hands to kind of soften it, and then you move over to the knee that's pointed out in front, and you just rest your body here. And the nice thing about this position that I found really useful is that Robert would often talk about laying your organs down. So I kind of try and let myself, this position is where I try to let myself stay the longest. So for me now, I feel a stretch kind of here in this hip flexor muscle and in this hip flexor muscle as it compresses. So you stay here for quite a while, for as long as you can, and you can rest your hands on the floor and rest your forehead on your hands. And just take some deep breaths, and you're not going to be able to be, or I'm not able to be grounded on both seat bones here, but that's okay. I feel a bit of stretching on the side. Then when you're ready, you put your the same arm in an L shape and just open up. And it gives a nice twist in the spine. And same thing, you're opening your chest up to the sky, but you're letting your head and your neck be kind of limp. And just opening the short space, the sky, belly breathing, and then you feel another stretch along the hip here. And feel free to, like, if this helps you release, feel free to kind of do within these whatever kind of friction or rubbing or pummeling that works for you. I find by letting myself not feel like I have to be rigid from within a position, that helps me. So to get out of that, sorry, I just did it without mentioning, so you just go back down over the leg and walk yourself back to the middle and then back up. I'm not sure why, but that's how I was taught, and I find that kind of adds an extra bit of stretching in my hip as I go. So then I go back to the center. Same thing, you might want to switch which fingers are interlocking if that matters to you. And just kind of reset, and you'll feel your hips kind of different. Re-engage with both seat bones, and feel free to kind of rotate your pelvis forward and back so you can arch and collapse the lower spine and just kind of find your neutral. And then stay in this position for a while and see if you can kind of release and get some mobility in the spine and the hips, and then let everything kind of settle for a few breaths. Let me start on the other side. So you extend the other foot out. Do not flex the foot, just keep it nice and loose. And just kind of soft, hands open. And I tend to start kind of and try to stay engaged with both seat bones. And then when I feel kind of ready to collapse a little bit, I just kind of let my head collapse. And I feel the stretching along the glute and the upper hip on this side. And if it helps you again to rub, if it feels a little tender, or if you find it just helps deepen the stretch, it's fine. But I wouldn't think of this as a stretch, it's just kind of letting yourself kind of be opened and limp. But within itself, just the weight and the gravity do kind of create stretches, but we're not actively trying to pull anything, if that makes sense. Just the position and gravity is helping certain parts of our body stretch out. And keeping the palms active and alive in front of you, but not stiff either, just soft. And keep the jaw loose, neck limp. Re-engage both seat bones, and even sometimes, some days I just kind of sit limp here. And then you let this leg come around behind. And now for me, like, this is a very different sensation to the other side. This hip here feels a lot tighter, so it's nice to kind of rub out the legs a little bit and try, like, it's harder for me to settle on both seat bones on this side, so it's good to know that this hip flexor muscle is a lot tighter than the other one. So I might spend a little more time here and re-engage. This is a position you would ideally try and have both seat bones on the floor, but when you're laying over the leg, you obviously won't. And then just kind of settle, hands open, get in your spine, try and get into both seat bones, and settle. Again, just let your throat and your tongue, everything kind of soften, aiming for belly breathing. And reconnect your seat bones as you need. And then we go down. Walk ourselves over. Move so you guys can see. And then you just rest your head on the floor, on your hands, and feel your body soften. And lay your organs down over the thigh. I kind of try to have my body in line with the thighs, so the torso is resting on the leg itself. Around the sternum area is where it connects with the knee and softens. And you feel a compression on the hip flexor muscle that you're laying over. And it's kind of a nice massage without you physically doing anything. You just breathe very deeply, kind of massages itself. And then you open up when you're ready. Feel free to stay as long or as little in each position as you can, or if it's too tense. And again, so this position, I don't have both seat bones on the floor. And then you move to open up, L shape. I have my palm opened to the ceiling. I can't recall if that was something we were taught, but that's what I do. And then I just try to open up. I feel a big twist in the back spine on this side. And feel your hand kind of in the fingers reaching out to the sky. Try not to collapse here, like I just did. Try to keep space here. The neck itself. But then don't hold the neck up, if that makes sense. So don't collapse in the shoulders, but let the neck stay loose. And let yourself kind of look up and take up the ceiling. When you're ready, you can go back down over the leg, walk yourself up, and back to the middle. And then I like to end, I actually could do this over and over and just keep going from side to side, depending on how stiff I feel. And then I like to end back in the center, and I spend a bit of time here, especially if my neck and shoulders are feeling stiff, which they are today. And another nice way you can incorporate more into this particular practice is you can just give your feet a bit of a massage. Put a little bit of pressure on the sole of the foot, about the toes, create a bit of friction, and you can kind of do that every time you return to this central position, or just whenever you want. But I find that's a nice addition for me to keep my feet feeling awake. You can stay in this position. And that's it. And to give, if anybody's looking for more, to open up their hips, another one I like to do with this practice is just throwing one leg over the other, so I try and have my knees in line. You can see from the side. And I just kind of hang out. I just let my neck hang or relax. If I'm bored and want to give myself a little jaw massage in this position, I can do that. I kind of end up doing that a lot. Or I just let myself try to relax entirely. That can be a more intense feeling on the upper hip and upper thigh. And then after a period, I'll just swap sides. And just, so like for me, now funnily enough in this position, it's the right leg that feels more tense. So I might stay more on this side. And same thing. If it's too intense, you can kind of stay up. Just kind of support yourself as you need. And let your hips stretch out. Yeah. And be kind to yourself.